Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. Today we are going to start a very important chapter, the circulatory shock. It is perhaps one of the most important chapters of this unit. Now, what is meant by circulatory shock? Circulatory shock, according to the definition, is the generalized inadequacy of blood flow through the body to such an extent that the body tissues are damaged because of too little oxygen and nutrients. So, what does this mean? This means that circulatory shock is the inadequacy of your circulatory system to provide enough oxygen and nutrients to your tissues. And this inadequacy results in damage or death of those tissues. So, to sum it up, what is circulatory shock? Whenever your circulatory system is unable to provide adequate oxygen and nutrients to the tissues, it may lead to tissue damage and tissue death, and this condition is known as circulatory shock. So, there are many conditions which can result in circulatory shock. Some of these conditions cause decreased cardiac output, and this decreased cardiac output may be the main reason due to which the tissues are unable to get their required oxygen and nutrients, and there are a number of factors which reduce cardiac output. But in some cases it was seen that the shock was present despite there being adequate cardiac output. So, let us discuss both of these conditions in which there is decreased cardiac output and those conditions which cause shock without decrease in cardiac output. So, this is just a general discussion. We will be discussing all of these factors in detail later on. So, to begin with the conditions in which the shock is in fact due to decreased cardiac output, we have hemorrhage and decreased blood volume such as in dehydration, then decreased vasomotor tone. As I mentioned in previous lectures, that within your brainstem we have a vasomotor center which consists of a vasodilator area and a vasoconstrictor area. The vasoconstrictor area at all times keeps sending sympathetic signals to your blood vessels and keeps them in a semi constricted state, and this semi constricted state is known as vasomotor tone. It is very important for the normal functioning of the circulatory system. So, whenever there is a decrease in the vasomotor tone, it reduces the cardiac output, which may lead to shock. Other than this, whenever there is any kind of obstruction to blood flow within the circulatory tree, this may also reduce the cardiac output. Another important reason for shock due to decreased cardiac output is the myocardial infarction. Whenever the heart is unable to contract adequately due to infarction or tissue damage, it is known as myocardial infarction, and it may lead to shock. Any toxic state of the heart, that can be due to drugs or any toxins produced by pathogens, may affect the heart and its ability to produce normal cardiac output, and this may also lead to shock. Then any dysfunction of the valves, stenosis of the valves or regurgitation of the valves may reduce cardiac output. Same is the case with abnormal rhythms of the heart. Whenever the rhythm of the heart is disturbed, it may affect its ability to pump adequate cardiac output. So, here we have a list of factors which decrease the cardiac output, and when the cardiac output is decreased, the blood which is being transported or which is being delivered to the tissues is also decreased, and it may lead to shock. Next, we have some conditions which result in shock despite there being normal cardiac output. So, whenever there is excess metabolism of the tissues due to some drugs or toxins produced by pathogens, the metabolism increases so high and the metabolic rate is so high that no matter how much blood is coming to the tissues, despite normal cardiac output, the demands of this hyperactive tissues cannot be met, and this may lead to damage or death of this tissue. So, this excess metabolism due to drugs and pathogens, toxins produced by pathogens may lead to shock. Another cause which may result in shock despite normal cardiac output is inadequate oxygen and nutrient supply. So, whenever there is any tissue damage within the lungs, or if there is any situation in which there is reduced oxygen in the environment, or if there is inadequate exchange of oxygen between the environment and the blood, and if there is reduced oxygen carrying capacity of the blood, all of these conditions can lead to inadequate supply of oxygen to the tissues. Or if there is malnutrition and not enough nutrients in a person's diet, or if there are nutrients but there are not present specific cofactors which are necessary to metabolize these nutrients, such as vitamin B12 and vitamin B complex, such as thiamine, riboflavin or niacin. If these vitamin B factors are missing and the body cannot utilize the nutrients, cannot break them down and cannot metabolize them, so in these conditions, despite there being no decrease in the cardiac output, there you can see that the tissues are experiencing shock. So, this is a general review of different factors that can cause shock and with or without decrease in cardiac output. So, after this general discussion, let us move on to the stages of shock. Shock can be divided into 3 stages based upon its severity. So, first of all, there is the least severe stage, which is known as non-progressive stage or the compensated stage. Secondly, we have the progressive stage, which if not treated will progress into the irreversible stage. Thirdly is the irreversible stage, which is the most severe stage of shock and which always leads to death. So, these are 3 stages of shock. Let us now discuss them in detail. So, let us now discuss the non-progressive or compensated stage of shock. It is the least severe stage of shock, and the person eventually recovers without any external medical attention or help. It is also known as the compensated shock because the body itself compensates and brings forth such mechanisms which help in maintaining the blood pressure and bringing it back towards normal. So, there are multiple mechanisms present within your body which can overcome this stage of shock, and the person can recover without any external help, external medical intervention. So, what are the mechanisms within your body which help you to overcome this non-progressive stage of shock? इसको नॉन प्रोग्रेसिव इसलिए भी कहते हैं क्योंकि ये प्रोग्रेस नहीं करती और इसमें आपको किसी मेडिकल अटेंशन की ज़रूरत नहीं होती. आपकी अपनी बॉडी जो है वो आपको हेल्प करती है टू ओवरकम दिस शॉक एंड इट डज़ नॉट प्रोग्रेस टू द नेक्स्ट स्टेज. So, among the mechanisms which are involved in overcoming and helping your body overcome the non-progressive stage of shock are the baroreceptor reflex and the CNS ischemic response. You already know that when your mean arterial pressure falls below 60, your baroreceptor reflex is activated, which is going to cause increased heart rate and increased heart contractility and vasoconstriction within your body, so that mean arterial pressure can be raised and your body can overcome the circulatory shock. Then if the mean arterial pressure starts falling to levels below 50 millimeter mercury, then your CNS ischemic response is activated. This is when there is not adequate or enough blood supply to your brain. So there is direct stimulation of the vasomotor centers, which result in increased heart rate, increased heart contractility and vasoconstriction throughout the body, and these mechanisms are very important to help your body overcome shock within the first few seconds of the shock. So if the shock is prolonged to around 1 minute to 30 minutes, then there are intermediate mechanisms which are going to come to play, and among these are the reverse stress relaxation and activation of renin angiotensin system. So you already know what is reverse stress relaxation. It is a type of delayed compliance. Whenever there is hemorrhage or reduced blood volume, what happens is that there is decreased arterial pressure within the blood vessels, and what the blood vessels do is they contract around this reduced blood volume, so that the mean arterial pressure can be maintained. This is known as reverse stress relaxation, and it is often seen after hemorrhages when the blood volume reduces and the blood vessels contract around or constrict around this reduced blood volume, so that the circulatory functions can be maintained and arterial pressure can be raised and enough blood is supplied to the tissues. Then there is the activation of renin angiotensin system. Whenever there is decreased mean arterial pressure, renin is secreted from the kidney, which causes the activation of angiotensin, and angiotensin is a very potent vasoconstrictor, which causes vasoconstriction throughout the body, and it helps to raise your mean arterial pressure in the first 30 minutes of shock. Then if the shock is still prolonged, there is secretion of ADH, which is the antidiuretic hormone, which causes reabsorption of salt and water from the kidneys and helps in increasing the volume of the blood. Then there is also secretion of epinephrine and norepinephrine from the adrenal glands, and these epinephrine and norepinephrine cause constriction of blood vessels and increased heart rate and contractility, which all help in increasing the mean arterial pressure, and these are the factors which help you overcome the initial non-severe stage of shock, which is known as the non-progressive shock. اور یہ میکینزمس کافی ہیں آپ کی باڈی کو ریکور کرنے میں ہیلپ کرنے کے لیے، اینڈ ناؤ دا شاک ڈز ناٹ پروگریس ٹو دا نیکسٹ اسٹیج. So as I already mentioned before that these sympathetic reflexes help you in compensating non-progressive shock. They do this by causing vasoconstriction, increasing your heart activity, and whenever there is absence of these sympathetic reflexes, even a mild loss of blood or mild loss of blood volume by dehydration can lead to death. So these sympathetic reflexes are very, very important in helping your body overcome minor or minute reductions in your blood volume. So let us now discuss the second stage of shock, which is progressive shock. This is the stage in which if no intervention is done or no external medical help is provided to the patient is going to progress to the final stage of shock, which is known as irreversible stage. And as I already mentioned before, that irreversible stage almost always, in fact it always leads to death, it always ends in death. So this is the window period, this progressive stage is the window period in which you can save the patient's life by providing external assistance, by providing medical assistance. You must remember that the reflexes present within the body which were helping the patient during the non-progressive stage are no longer adequate and no longer helpful when the patient has progressed to this second stage of shock, which is known as progressive shock. So, what happens, why does a non-progressive shock become a progressive shock? When there is a very large or huge loss of blood volume, then the patient is and the body cannot compensate for it. When the body is unable to compensate for this huge loss of blood volume despite all of its reflexes like CNS ischemic response and the baroreceptor response, etc., then the body starts to move towards the progressive shock. And it is here when you need to provide external assistance and medical attention. So, what is the main difference between non-progressive shock and progressive shock? You must remember that all the reflexes which were helping the body during non-progressive stage, all of them were negative feedback. They helped in raising the decreased arterial pressure, they helped in increasing the cardiac output when the cardiac output was reduced. So, they were all negative feedbacks. But in this second stage of shock, which is progressive stage, the body is so far gone that it cannot help with its normal negative feedback mechanisms, and these mechanisms can no longer provide the required cardiac output and the mean arterial pressure, and the body is so deteriorated that the cardiac output is not enough to sustain life without external help. And there are some mechanisms which are activated in this stage of shock, but unfortunately these are positive feedback cycles. These are all vicious cycles which make the condition worsen and which further deteriorates the body. Now let me explain what I am trying to say. First example of the positive feedback is cardiac depression. Whenever a person is suffering from huge quantities of blood volume loss, obviously the organs, all the organs are not getting their required nutrients and oxygen. Same happens with the heart. The heart is unable to get its required amount of oxygen and nutrients. And now what happens? The heart starts to deteriorate, its muscles start to face ischemia and damage. When these cells are damaged, they cannot perform their normal pumping function and heart cannot pump out its normal cardiac output. When this cardiac output decreases, the blood supply to all organs including heart decreases further. This will further deteriorate the condition of the cardiac muscles, which will further reduce the cardiac output, which will further worsen the condition of the body. So, this is a positive feedback vicious cycle. This is how the heart starts to deteriorate during the progressive stage of shock, unless and until we provide some external help by infusing blood, blood transfusions, or by providing plasma replacement therapies such as fluids, any IV fluids, so that the volume can be regained. Only then can we remove the body from this cycle of vicious deterioration or positive feedback cycles. Secondly, we have the vasomotor failure. Now, what is vasomotor failure? As I already mentioned, that in your brainstem you have the vasoconstrictor area, which at all times is sending signals to the arteries of your body and keep them in a semi contracted state, so that your circulatory system can function properly. But what happens is, when the person is facing progressive shock, the blood volume is so reduced and the cardiac output is so reduced that not enough blood is reaching the brain, and the brain starts to experience ischemia, and it starts to face decreased nutrients and oxygen, which leads to damage of the brain stem. And when the vasomotor area is damaged, it no longer sends signals to the arteries of your body to keep them semi constricted or to maintain the normal vasomotor tone. What happens now? Your arteries will dilate, and when these arteries will dilate, your arterial pressure will fall further down, which will reduce your mean systemic filling pressure. It will reduce your venous return, and when your venous return will reduce, your cardiac output will also reduce. So when your cardiac output will reduce, there will be again a vicious cycle. Lesser blood will reach your brain, and your vasomotor function will further deteriorate. Then another vicious cycle we have is the sludging of blood or blockage of small arteries when the blood agglutination takes place. As you know that all cells are in working condition as long as the person is alive, all the cells will carry on with their metabolism. So when the cells are carrying on with their metabolisms, they are going to produce acids and hydrogen ions, and these hydrogen ions and acidic secretions are going to cause the blood to agglutinate, and the blood is going to form small clots and clumps, and these clots and clumps are going to block blood vessels. When the blood vessels will be blocked, blood will not be able to reach cells, and this condition is going to further worsen, and there is going to be more accumulation of hydrogen ions and acidic secretions within the cell, which is going to form further agglutinations and further small clots. So another point we have while discussing the positive feedback is the increased capillary permeability. So whenever there is reduced blood supply to the tissues are going to have a large quantities of waste products and vasodilators accumulated within them, and these waste products are going to cause vasodilation of the arteries and the capillaries, and when the capillaries are going to be dilated, there is going to be leakage of fluid from the capillaries, which is further going to reduce the blood volume, because the fluid is going to leak from the capillaries and going to accumulate in the tissue space. So the blood volume will reduce, and when the blood volume will reduce, the shock will worsen. As I already mentioned before, that all the tissues that experience ischemia are going to end up releasing a lot of toxins, and these toxins are going to increase the capillary permeability, as we mentioned in the previous point, and further deteriorate the condition and further worsen the shock. These toxins can also cause cardiac depression, especially the toxins known as endotoxins. What happens is when there is progressive shock and the blood supply to your gut is reduced, there are going to be present a lot of bacteria within your gut which are going to die, and they are going to produce these endotoxins. These endotoxins are absorbed into your blood and they reach your heart, where they start destroying the cardiac tissue and cause cardiac depression. And when the cardiac depression takes place, the cardiac output is going to reduce, which is further going to deteriorate this condition and this progressive shock. So if this was too overwhelming for you, let me explain it again. प्रोग्रेसिव शॉक की वो स्टेज है जब आपकी बॉडी के मैकेनिज़म्स उसको वापस रिस्टोर नहीं कर सकते आपके मीन आर्टीरियल प्रेशर को और कार्डियक आउटपुट को, और ये तब होता है जब ब्लड लॉस बहुत ज़्यादा हो, ब्लड वॉल्यूम बहुत कम हो जाए और आपकी अपनी बॉडी जो है उसके लिए कंपनसेट ना कर पाए. अब इसमें क्या होता है कि अगर आप बाहर से हेल्प नहीं देंगे, कोई प्रोवाइड नहीं करेंगे हेल्प, तो पेशेंट की कंडीशन जो है वो डिटीरिएट हो जाएगी, यहाँ तक कि वो आखिरी स्टेज तक पहुँच जाएगा, विच इज़ नोन ایز irreversible stage. تو اس میں ایسا کیا ہوتا ہے کہ باڈی ڈیٹیریٹ کرنا شروع ہو جاتی ہے. اس میں کچھ پازیٹیو فیڈ بیکس ایکٹیویٹ ہو جاتے ہیں. اس میں پازیٹیو فیڈ بیکس کیا ہوتے ہیں کہ جس ڈائریکشن میں آپ کی انیشیل سٹیمولس تھا اسی میں رسپانس ہو, کہ اگر حالت خراب ہو رہی ہے تو اس کو فردر خراب کریں, ایسے میکینزمز ہوتے ہیں. اس میں سب سے پہلے کارڈیک ڈپریشن آتا ہے, کیونکہ بلڈ والیوم اتنا کم تھا, تمام آرگنز کو بھی بلڈ نہیں پہنچ رہا تھا, تو ظاہر ہے ہارٹ کو بھی بلڈ کم جاتا ہے. اب ہارٹ کے ٹیشوز ڈیمیج ہونا شروع ہو جاتے ہیں. جب ہارٹ کے ٹیشوز ڈیمیج ہوں گے تو ہارٹ پراپرلی پمپ نہیں کر پائے گا, اور اگر ہارٹ پراپرلی پمپ نہیں کر پائے گا تو کارڈیک آؤٹ پٹ کم ہو جائے گا, اور جب کارڈیک آؤٹ پٹ کم ہوگا تو یہی سائیکل دوبارہ چلنا شروع ہو جائے گا. دوبارہ تمام آرگنز کو بلڈ کم جائے گا, خود ہارٹ کو بلڈ کم جائے گا, اور ہارٹ کے ٹیشوز اور ڈیمیج ہونا شروع ہو جائیں گے اور کارڈیک آؤٹ پٹ اور کم ہو جائے گا. اسی طرح ویزو موٹر فیلئر, میں نے آپ کو بتایا تھا کہ برین سٹیم کے اندر آپ کا ویزو موٹر سینٹر موجود ہوتا ہے, اور یہ آپ کی آرٹریز کو نارملی تھوڑا سا کنسٹرکٹڈ رکھتا ہے, جس کو ویزو موٹر ٹون کہتے ہیں. اور آپ کو پتہ ہے کہ ویزو موٹر ٹون اور بہت امپورٹنٹ ہوتی ہے آپ کے وینس ریٹرن کے لیے. پچھلے لیکچر میں نے آپ کو بتایا تھا کہ وینس ریٹرن دو چیزوں پہ ڈیپینڈ کرتا ہے, بلڈ والیوم پہ اور ویزو موٹر ٹون پہ. بلڈ والیوم تو پہلے ہی کم ہو گیا, ویزو موٹر ٹون بھی اگر کم ہو گئی جب برین کو بلڈ نہیں جائے گا تو اس کی وجہ سے آپ کا مین سسٹمک فلنگ پریشر کم ہو جائے گا. جب مین سسٹمک فلنگ پریشر کم ہوگا تو ظاہر ہے وینس ریٹرن بھی کم ہو جائے گا, اینڈ وینس ریٹرن از ڈائریکٹلی پروپورشنل ٹو کارڈیک آؤٹ پٹ. جب وینس ریٹرن کم ہوگا تو کارڈیک آؤٹ پٹ کم ہوگا, اور جب کارڈیک آؤٹ پٹ کم ہوگا تو پھر تمام آرگنز کو بلڈ کم جائے گا, اسپیشلی برین کو بھی. اور جب برین کو کم جائے گا تو دوبارہ یہ وشیس سائیکل شروع ہو جائے گا ویزو موٹر فیلئر کا. اسی طرح جب ٹیشوز کو بلڈ نہیں جاتا تو وہاں پر ویسٹ پروڈکٹس جمع ہونا شروع ہو جاتے ہیں, جس میں خاص طور پر ہائیڈروجن آئنز اور کاربن ڈائی آکسائڈ اور لیکٹک ایسڈ ہوتے ہیں. یہ تمام ایسیڈک جو ویسٹ پروڈکٹس ہیں یہ بلڈ کو کلاٹ کراتے ہیں, جس کی وجہ سے ٹیشوز کو آنے والی بلڈ ویسلز جو ہیں ان میں بلاکیج ہو جاتا ہے, اور ٹیشوز کو بلڈ نہیں آ پاتا, جس کی وجہ سے یہ کنڈیشن ورسن ہو جاتی ہے, اور زیادہ ویسٹ پروڈکٹس جمع ہونا شروع ہو جاتے ہیں سیل کے پاس, اور زیادہ ایسیڈک انوائرمنٹ ہو جاتا ہے. یہ تمام ویسٹ پروڈکٹس جو ہیں یہ کیپلریز کی پرمیبلٹی بھی انکریز کراتے ہیں. جب کیپلریز کی پرمیبلٹی انکریز ہوگی تو فلوئڈ لیک کر کے کیپلریز سے باہر آ جائے گا ان دا انٹرسٹیشل اسپیس. جب انٹرسٹیشل اسپیس میں فلوئڈ جمع ہونا شروع ہو جائے گا تو ظاہر ہے بلڈ ویسلز کے اندر بلڈ والیوم کم ہو جائے گا, کیونکہ فلوئڈ بلڈ ویسلز سے لیک کر کے انٹرسٹیشل فلوئڈ میں آ گیا ہے. اور جب بلڈ والیوم کم ہو جائے گا تو آپ کا وینس ریٹرن کم ہو جائے گا اور کارڈیک آؤٹ پٹ کم ہو جائے گا. اسی طرح ٹاکسنز جو ہیں, جو سیلز جو ہیں وہ اسکیمک سیلز ہیں, وہ ٹاکسنز پروڈیوس کرتے ہیں, اور ایسے ٹاکسنز جو ہیں وہ بھی کیپلری پرمیبلٹی کو انکریز کراتے ہیں. اس کے علاوہ آپ کے جی آئی ٹی کو جب بلڈ سپلائی کم جائے گی تو وہاں پر بیکٹیریا جو ہیں وہ اینڈوٹاکسنز پروڈیوس کریں گے, اور اینڈوٹاکسنز آپ کے ہارٹ کے اوپر ایکٹ کر کے کارڈیک ڈپریشن کرا سکتے ہیں, جس سے یہ کنڈیشن فردر ڈیٹیریٹ ہوگی. تو دس از ویری امپورٹنٹ, یو مسٹ ریمبر دا 3 stages of shock, and you might be asked about these stages of shock during your exams. Finally, let's move on to the last stage of shock, which is known as irreversible shock. This happens when adequate external medical attention is not provided during progressive shock, and that's when the progressive shock converts into irreversible shock. Now in this stage of shock, the body has deteriorated to such an extent that any known therapy or any known medical aid or any infusion, any transfusion is unable to save the patient's life. No matter what you do, how much blood you transfuse, how much fluid you transfuse, whatever drug you try to transfuse, the patient is not going to recover. He may you may only prolong his life for a few minutes or hours, but ultimately the person is going to die because there has been multiple organ failure. All his tissues and different organs have been damaged to such an extent that they cannot be recovered. This may also be because of deteriorative changes within the heart muscle, because the heart muscle was deprived of oxygen and nutrients for so long that it resulted in irreparable loss of cardiac muscle. Now the heart is so deteriorated that it cannot pump or sustain life. All the tissues of the body, especially different organs, the brain and kidney are have faced so long hypoxia, or have experienced such a long period without oxygen and nutrients, and have faced such damage that they cannot again recover their function. Other than that, there are multiple enzymes which have been released into the body, such as enzymes of pancreas are released within the body, and all the lysosomes within the cells break down and release their hydrolytic enzymes. The mitochondria stop working, and if, even at the cellular level the damage is irreparable. And the body starts to experience very acidic environment because of all these acidic enzymes and acidic secretions, and the acidosis in the body is so high that it cannot be reversed or reverted back. Then another major reason for this irreparable damage is that there is depletion of high energy phosphate reserves. So the time during which the tissues were unable to gain oxygen or nutrients from the blood, what the tissues do is they use up their stored ATP, they use up their adenosine and adenosine phosphate compounds, and use this energy to survive. But even if now you do provide blood to the tissues, you transfuse blood into the patient or transfuse fluid into the patient, these high energy phosphate reserves cannot be restored, because it takes a lot of time to form these reserves such as ATP, etc. So now no matter what you do, the patient is not going to survive and is finally or ultimately going to die, and this is known as the irreversible stage of shock. Graph will show you the two stages, the progressive stage and the irreversible stage of shock. Suppose this person had a normal cardiac output, and at this stage he experiences a hemorrhage. Suppose he has a road traffic accident and he starts to bleed out, and he bleeds out so much that his own body and its own responses cannot help him. So now what the person is in, he is in the progressive stage. So this is the window period. During this time, if you transfuse blood and you transfuse fluids and you raise the cardiac output back towards normal, the patient is going to survive. But if you lose this golden opportunity and lose this window period, what is going to happen, that the person is going to move towards the last stage of shock, which is known as irreversible shock. And during this stage the cardiac output might slightly increase, but then it is going to fall to non-existent values, almost to zero, and the patient is ultimately going to die. And even if you do transfuse large quantities of blood and fluid and drugs to this patient, it will only result in prolongation of life for a few minutes to hours, and ultimately it is still going to result in death of the patient, no matter what you do. This is because the during the irreversible stage, the organs and heart and other tissues of the body were damaged to such an extent that they cannot recover despite this huge transfusion or any external medical intervention. Now, so now that you are done with the stages of shock, let me remind you that it is a very important topic, and you might be asked a question regarding the stages of shock. You can be asked what are the 3 stages of shock and what are the mechanisms involved. So you are going to write about the non-progressive stage, in which there are negative feedback mechanisms, and you are going to name them, all of them, the baroreceptors, the CNS ischemic response, the reverse stress relaxation, etc. Then you are going to mention the progressive stage, and you are going to mention how, if no intervention is done, it will progress into the irreversible stage. and you have to mention the positive feedbacks, you have to name them, and how these positive feedbacks start a vicious cycle which cause deterioration of the body. And then finally you have to discuss the irreversible shock and why it becomes irreversible. It is because the tissues are damaged, because there is acidosis in the body, because the high energy phosphate reserves are used up. ये आपने सब कुछ लिखना है. These are very important questions and these might be asked of you in the exam.